wasn't looking at the clock as close as I should. We're a minute or so late. The meeting is open. First thing is usually public comment, always public comment. So if there's something that you wish to say to the board that is not on the agenda, now is the time to do it. And now's the time to learn that if you wish to speak, you need to go up here to the podium there and speak into that microphone, because that's the connection to FCTV. So when you get there, please be sure that you give your name and what it is you're going to speak on. Is there anyone who wants to make a public comment?
Madam,
Jim?
I need to make an apology. Last week, there was several people that were getting up and going back and forth, and I got people up, and I started wagging my finger at it, saying, go over there, and they objected to me doing that, because I was just telling them to go there. I shouldn't have put hand signals. I should have been doing this, and they started, I watched myself
You
on
just
TV.
did it again.
I know, but I'm saying they did it back to me, and I'm going to try
Oh.
not to do it. I'm apologizing for me pointing at people, say, please go up there and speak. I was trying to do the rules, but I shouldn't be doing it the way I did it, and when I did it on television, I was embarrassed,
Oh,
because I watch myself, and I'm just saying, I know I did it, and I'm going to keep my hands folded. Maybe.
we're going to check on you.
You have to sit on them, Jim, that's the only way.
But anyways, because the person waved his finger back at me, and I said, why is he doing that? I said, that's because I'm doing it to him. And I said, that was wrong.
Okay,
Okay?
apology accepted. Actually, before the meeting, there was something else I really did want to make a point of saying. I want to thank Pat for chairing for while I was away, but I particularly want to thank Pamela Harding Barrett, who has served on this board for, I believe, not quite three full terms. And she was a diligent member. She did her homework. She was our representative on the Affordable Housing Committee, and she did a lot of work for us. She took a bad fall several months ago now and assumed that she would be better instantaneously, and she was not. And now she has decided that it is better for her and for the board if she resigns her position, which she has done. So the position of our seventh member has been advertised. I believe we have had 2 applicants.
That I'm aware of.
Yep, so there've been 2 applicants. The process will involve the select board and the planning board interviewing those 2 and whomever else turns up before, I think, November 4th. And we'll make a choice. That person will be appointed to serve until this coming general election in May, and then someone will have to run for the position. So as an elected position, it doesn't really get filled to complete the term, but just to go till the next election. So thank you to Pam. I will miss her, and I'm grateful for her service to the town. So
But you can still continue to call me Pam if you like.
I probably will.
I know.
No, I'll make an effort. Okay, so, Paul, the minutes.
Madam Chair, I recommend approval of the minutes of October 1st and October 8th, 2024, as written.
Second,
Second.
comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Good minutes, thank you. Now, first on the agenda, we have 1 approval not required. The applicant is Kevin Clower, and it's on behalf of Cape Cod Young Men's Christian Association, plan of land to create 2 lots, 2A and 2B, from the existing parcel at 485 Brick Kiln Road. Mr. Clower.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Mr. Fox, if you do have to point, I would suggest you go with the Disney World approach. I'm not kidding. If you're at Disney, and you ever ask them for directions, they'll point, but they point with 2 fingers in an upward direction.
Okay.
Because it is rude in
More
certain
appropriate.
cultures to point, say that
Okay,
direction.
it's more appropriate.
So
Thank you.
use 2 fingers in an upward direction. That
Okay.
and
I
that is
will-
what every
I will
cast
do
member
that.
at Disney will do. I digress.
Moving on.
We have before you an A&R plan for 485 Brick Hill Road. This is the site of the Christ Lutheran Church. It is currently slightly under 10 acres. It's 9.7 or 8 acres. And we're carving it off into 2 smaller portions, one 3.69 acre parcel, which will remain for the church, and then one 6.16 acre parcel, which is the site that we are intending to develop for the YMCA. That project, that site plan review process is coming back before this board in just a few weeks. But in talking with Jed, we figured we should have the A&R plan approved first so that we knew exactly what potential lot we would be permitting this for. So before you is that plan, which subdivides that 9.8 acre parcel into 2 smaller parcels, each of which are conforming to zoning, though that is not what you decide in the A&R process.
Correct. Any comment from the board? From the
Quick
public?
question.
Oh, Paul.
Quick question. Mr. Clower, I see there's a property line for an unrecorded plan. Can you explain what that is?
Sure, that actually has to do with the original subdivision we discussed with the Christ Lutheran Church and the YMCA. The Christ Lutheran Church is actually going to retain a slightly larger portion than they had originally anticipated. Part of that has to do with shared parking and lot coverage and other calculations that we'll get into within the site plan review process. But that dashed line you see there was the original sort of idea of what was going to be carved off. The firm line that you see is actually what's going to be created in terms of Lot 2A and Lot 2B.
Thank you.
Any other board comment?
Move to endorse?
Any public comment? No. Jed,
I recommend endorsement.
you move to endorse?
Yep.
Is there a second?
Without regard to zoning.
Without regards to zoning.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're ready to go.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
may, while Attorney Clower is at the microphone, perhaps you would consider taking item with the Cape Cod, or the YMCA, the continuance or the decision deadline extension out of order and allow Mr. Clower to go home.
That would be nice.
Or at least not be here.
If there are no
about
objections
me?
from the board?
Not you.
I move that we take it out of order.
All in favor?
Second. It's moved, Bob
Yep.
moved and I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Kevin?
So we recently went through the Cape Cod Commission process and received unanimous approval from the commission, which sent us back to the planning board. We're asking to extend the hearing date and the decision date by a few weeks because we're in the process of just working out a few things with the select board to address some of the wastewater discharge issues that we have been trying to figure out, and we anticipate having a resolution on that in the next two weeks or so. So we've asked for a continuation on the hearing and then a continuation of the decision deadline as well.
Okay, and I gather the continuation you've requested is still November 12th?
Yes,
Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
With the deadline
And the
extended.
extended deadline to December 31st.
correct.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I move that we accept the applicant's request.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're all set?
Thank you very much. Appreciate your
Thank
time
you.
tonight.
And thank you, Jed. Would have been handier to put it, on water.
It worked out.
Now, we need to open a public hearing. This is for the Town of Falmouth Engineering Department, an application to remove a maple tree, one acerubrum red maple public shade tree at 31 Old Dock Road for the construction of a new sidewalk.
Notices.
Town engineer, oh, and then public notice.
Beautiful tree, yeah.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, the public notice of this hearing was published on October 4th and October 11th, and 7 abutters were notified by regular mail.
Are any of those abutters here? No.
Good evening. So this is a request to remove a tree for the installation of a sidewalk, 5-foot wide asphalt sidewalk on Old Dock Road. I'll go through the history of the project. Currently, there is a sidewalk that runs on Old Dock Road that runs from 28A down to approximately the bike path parking lot, the gravel parking lot. We've been doing a lot of work over the past several years, or actually the past 10 years on the bike path parking lot. We paved it. We were able to get a lot more spots in there, and we also created some boat traffic, the boat ramp for the trucks and trailers to be able to park in there, and to be able, so what they do is they go and they launch a boat, they come back to the parking lot and park, and then they walk back down. In the summertime, there is a lot of activity on Old Dock Road, getting down to the ramp and getting down to the dock with kayakers. So this is a plan, for public works, this would be a very small project. It's approximately 700 feet long. It's a small project, so typically we do not put plans together, but in 2015, we did you can see in red, we did the landing over for the pink granite, we did the landing over. So we had this plan, so I spent some time showing it so I could put it on this presentation. So the history behind this is, in 2009, Public Works had a water main project that ran down 28A and also ran down Old Dock Road and came by the landing area and continued down Old Dock Road. During that project, there was supposed to be a sidewalk installed at that time. It was not installed during that project. In 2015, when we did the landing area over, we also had a sidewalk proposed for this area, and it did not get constructed in 2015. So in recent years, I'm gonna say in 2020, there's been a lot of activity and a lot of folks from the West Falmouth Village Association and also West Falmouth residents that have been going to the Traffic Advisory Committee and voicing their, their request to have the sidewalk completed on this, in this area. In addition, the town of Falmouth right now is looking at putting safety zones in multiple areas around town. This area was also requested to be a safety zone. A safety zone is 20-mile-an-hour zone in the area that would be regulated for this area. Anyone that goes into this area by the bike path and comes down towards the dock can see the amount of amount of pedestrians, amount of bicyclists that walk down this road. And actually, there's a lot of families with baby carriages, seen with baby strollers walking down the road in the summertime. So what we're looking to do is finally come in and complete this project. The property owner of 31 Old Dock Road, we've been working with the property owner, Nancy Strickland, and to put this sidewalk in. And of course, the sidewalk runs between her house. The tree in question is right in front of her house. So we wanted to work through the proper chains to go through her, and also the neighbor a little further down over by the boat ramp to talk with them and say that there's a sidewalk coming. Now, not everybody is in favor of a sidewalk being installed in front of their house for certain and obvious reasons. In this area, both abutters are in favor of it. This would require is the removal of a 28-inch red maple tree, and a street view of looking at this from Google Maps is, this is number 2029 Old Dock Road. This is a proposed area of a sidewalk that we'd be looking at. This is a grass strip that would be putting in front, and this is the maple that's in question. So because of being a maple, and I'll let Jeremiah speak further to the trees, but the high root structure on the trees, when we come in to put a sidewalk in from the edge of the roadway, we're gonna be digging all this grass out. We're gonna be digging down. You gotta put down a gravel base, and then you gotta put down asphalt on top of it. So we'd be digging down 8 inches in front of that tree, and the root structure on that would be compromised for that tree. So this is the proposed sidewalk. This is the red maple. The sidewalk the bike path parking lot is just be outside of this photo. This sidewalk was continue in front of this property, and stop at the boat ramp. Because in 2015, the plan was to continue the sidewalk to the landing area where the vehicles park on the landing area. It's very narrow in that area. We're gonna look at that, and we also wanna have a sidewalk installed in that area. If we do that, it's very narrow, so we'd have to shift this is just for informational purposes, but there's a curve in Old Dock Road, just beyond Nashawena Street. We'd have to take the road and pull it to the east a couple of feet, so we could fit that sidewalk in to be in front of where the wall is in front of the seawall. So what that would do is we could create a continuous path from the bike path parking lot all the way down past these properties to the boat ramp and also to the landing. So as we get working on this project, we're also looking at, like I say, shifting the road and continuing in that sidewalk to the landing. So by the removal of that tree, we're looking at putting in 3 replacement trees, 2 to 3 inch diameter. I'll let Jeremiah speak to the species, but in that area, we'd be able to put 2 replacement trees, and then we'd be looking at another tree somewhere along Old Dock Road in that area. And once again, just goes back to that plan with the project history. Like we say, the sidewalk was supposed to be installed in 2009, 15 years ago, and it wasn't. In 15, it was not installed, so we want to complete it now and have it finished up.
Would you like Jeremiah to speak next?
Jeremiah, do you want to speak to you?
Well, then we can question them
I just question a property line issue.
when they're done.
You have a question?
Yeah, but let's let them finish their presentation.
Mr. McConaty, you mentioned twice that the sidewalk was approved but not installed.
No.
Your slide shows that you're going to have the possibility of installing it. Isn't it more definitive than that?
No, we're going to install the sidewalk we're going to install the sidewalk from the bike path parking lot past this first residence up to Nashawena Street and continue it up to the boat ramp. That's the project. What we're looking at doing is continuing, we'd have to shift the road, but continuing that sidewalk in this area over here to get it over to the ramp. This section right here, this little 75-foot, 100-foot section right here is the area that we'd be looking at shifting the road to fit that sidewalk in, to make it a complete project. So it'd be contiguous, it would be from the path over to the boat ramp.
Thank you.
So I don't have much to present, but just to clearly, yeah. But I did set out an opinion that we did for the select board as well. The opinion from myself as the tree warden, that construction of this sidewalk is, as you saw from Peter's previous slide, is going right into what we call the critical root zone of that tree. That's where a lot of the storage and anchorage roots are. They're roots over 2 inches, so removing those roots is completely detrimental to the tree's health and structural capabilities. So if this sidewalk goes where it is, the tree will need to come down. There is no real saving the tree if we put the sidewalk there.
And the replacement trees are?
Replacement trees would probably be red maples. It's kind of, I can't give a definitive on what the replacement trees would be because I have to see what kind of stock there is. But I try to do native trees and try to do something to the best of the capabilities that will not, down the road, hurt the sidewalk, which is not really possible to do, but we will attempt to do. But with replacement in this area, I like to do native trees.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Jim?
This is definitely on town property, correct?
Correct.
Is there any possibility when you put in replacement trees that you could talk with the abutters, that you could actually move the trees a little bit into their property? Because we have a really serious problem with trees and sidewalks, and I know when we did them 30, 40 years ago, we thought it was great, but I live on Mill Road, and it's a total mess. And we did things well-intentioned a long time ago, and I think we should learn from our mistakes and not completely redo them, and I really think we should explore that if we can.
Yes, we do that. It's called a setback planting. I have an agreement. Obviously, I'd have to get it. I have the permission to go 20 feet into private property with the property owners.
You could ask them.
Yes. And then they have responsibility of the
I would
care of that
encourage you
tree.
to do that, because this is going to be a popular road for the next 250 years, and we shouldn't be tearing down another tree 30, 40 years from now. That's a beautiful tree. Did we plant that tree?
I'm not exactly sure if we
It's a
planted it.
gorgeous tree, but it's in the wrong place.
Yeah.
The sidewalks have to be where they need to be, and I just think we need to be smarter if you're taking this down, you got to be smarter where you plant the next ones.
Oh, well, we try to do our best moving forward
I'm
with
just
all
bringing,
that.
I know you do. You do what you can, right?
Yeah. But we would try. You'd have to have the property owners be in agreement to do so. But we would, depending on the strip of grass there are some trees that, they're not always my favorite trees to plant, but they do work better in tighter areas. Because of this tree is a large shade tree, I try to replant large shade trees and not replace it with smaller ornamental trees. But because we might do a couple of them in that area, we could maybe mix it up a little bit and try to use the best species.
Other board comments,
Yeah.
questions? Bob?
That's for Peter. The sidewalk is gonna be 5 feet wide.
Yes.
Does that include the grass strip?
No.
So when you, on a roadway, when you install a sidewalk, you need to do one of two things. There has to be a boundary from the roadway for a safe zone for the pedestrians on the sidewalk. So there has to be a vertical separation between the sidewalk, between the roadway and the sidewalk. Typically, it's a granite curb or a grass strip. So we'd be looking at putting in the grass strip. And I think in this area, it doesn't matter if we put a 3-foot grass strip, a 3-foot wide grass strip, or a 5-foot wide grass strip. If we were looking at putting a tree in that grass strip like they are further up the roadway, I'd make that grass strip as wide as possible, so there'd be impervious area for the tree growth, for water. The roadway layout for it's hard to see, but the roadway layout for Old Dock Road is 50 feet.
Yeah.
So the property line is about a foot behind that tree.
So the
there's-
pavement is on the driveway.
Yeah, the driveway's on private property. It's that grass strip between the L shape and the driveway and the tree. The property line's in that area.
So there's gonna be 5 feet of paved sidewalk?
It will be,
Five.
for ADA regulations, it has to be a 5-foot wide.
Because I'm also thinking of people dragging kayaks down there too, giving them enough room to,
What we've tried to do, where there's room, we try to put in wider sidewalks. We try to put 6 feet and wider when we can.
yeah.
It makes it in more like a shared use path, but in this area, I think 5 feet would be tight in that area.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Other board comments? Any comments from the public?
Dan Shearer, I live on 4 Old Dock Road. And this is a gorgeous tree. And I would love to save it if it could be. And I have talked, and it really, I don't think can be, and have the sidewalk, which is very important. As they say, and I'll say, or baby carriages, and me and my 4-wheel little cart going down there. But if we don't go all the way to the town dock, I think it's crazy, because you're going to be dumping these people at the ramp there, where cars are going in and out. We had a terrible time building that ramp anyway, because it's not in the state's rules that you can have a ramp like that where you can't turn a car around. But it's there, it's used. That road is amazingly used. When I moved there, I couldn't believe the amount of traffic that's on there, and walkers. So I hope you won't take this tree down unless you were going to complete this project and go all the way to the town dock.
I believe that was
Go on,
part of the
Martha.
presentation. Is it all planned for this year, this coming year? Thank you, Mr. Shearer.
So it's based on funding. So if the portion between the dock and the landing is not done this year, we'll be looking at doing it next year. As I said, that's a curve in the roadway, so the whole road has to shift. We cannot fit a sidewalk in where it is right now. So we'd have to shift the whole roadway from Nashawena Street around the corner to the other side of the dock, a few feet, just to be able to put that in. If it doesn't get in this year, it'll be in a future year, but
Okay.
I'm saying to Dan right now that for Public Works, this is the 3rd time we've been looking at this. I want to get it done.
But I think the process for this is kind of interesting. Mr. Cornock, would you explain the process? Why is the planning board having to listen about a tree?
Right, so it's because of the shade tree bylaw that the town adopted some years ago. So Old Dock Road is considered to be a scenic road, And anytime that there's work involved in a scenic road layout that requires the removal of shade trees or removal of stone walls of that type of nature, then the planning board's required to have a public hearing, take comments from the public, and then create a decision, determination, if you will, and submit that to the town clerk's office. So it's a process that the planning board's involved in only because it's a scenic road.
But isn't there another step beyond the planning board?
Are you referring to the select board's
I am.
process? Yes, and the select board also hold a public hearing, and which they already have, and they've issued a positive decision to remove the tree based on a positive decision from this board. So I think everyone's somewhat in agreement at this point, although I can't speak for you at this time.
And might be champions for the funding on 1 year, maybe.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Mr. Shearer?
Let's not put it off. I mean, it's been put off 3 times. And really, someone who walks there every day, if you dump all these people off where it's now going to go, somebody's going to get hurt. It would be better not to do it, because what we do is we walk on the lawn all the way down, and then you start being very careful. But if you're going to go on a regular sidewalk, you're going to get dumped right in a place where there's terrific traffic, terrific congestion. And I really wish you would say, or this committee would say, no, we won't take this tree down unless we have the sidewalk completed. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. If there's no one else who wishes to speak on this, could we add, Jed, did you?
Well, I just wanted to remind the chair that there is a comment included in your packet. You may want to read
Oh,
it
for
for the
Mrs.
record.
Strickland, yes. I'll have to find it, just a minute. We have back here.
I believe it was an email in support.
No,
That's in support.
Correct.
this, do you have it right there?
Is that the one? No, that's not.
No. Here it comes, it's over there.
Oh,
Oh,
Oh, that way.
I have it right here. It's in your packet.
This is from the owner of the house, where the tree is on the edge of her own property. And she's saying, we are in support of the town of Falmouth Engineering's request for the tree removal at 31 Old Dock Road. The removal of the tree will allow for a much-needed sidewalk to connect the bike path to the town boat landing. And she goes on about the history, how long they've been waiting for this, and damage that's existed for this tree. And so this, the most immediate abutter, and Dan is an abutter across the street, she's in favor without a restriction, and he with a restriction. So I wonder if we could ask for a positive motion for our next meeting, and could we condition that on possibly getting the funding for the full project at one time? Because a comment has been made that really bears on the safety of people who are led to walk down that sidewalk.
So there's 2 things. Well, there's one thing you want to do first. You want to close the hearing, and you'll want to discuss it amongst the board. But I would suggest perhaps just focusing on the removal of the tree itself, rather than adding in that condition of funding, because that's sort of up in the air. I would recommend just focusing on the removal of the tree.
Yeah.
Okay, but we may not follow that recommendation.
I
Possibly.
understand.
You wish to discuss this further?
No,
well, I move that we close the hearing.
second, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone who objects to the request for a positive motion at our next meeting?
I don't object, but I've had to deal with the same issue every time we're doing a development where you're digging in with heavy equipment and you're trying to save as many trees as you can, and your arborist says the trees are all gonna die. And we try to do it as much as we can, but you can't have heavy equipment or digging up roots, and it's a fact of life.
And therefore,
The tree needs, if we're gonna put a sidewalk there, it has to come down.
we're apparently
I
in
mean,
agreement with that.
I know,
We're
but
not
just saying, I
disagreeing.
just want to point out that we have to deal with this everywhere. As much as we would like to save the beautiful tree, although the really question is if you want to condition it. I think it's more important to take one small step and move towards getting that sidewalk down to the the beach, not the beach, but the boat ramp, and just keep moving forward. So I'd like to proceed without a restriction on it.
I would also.
Yeah.
Paul?
I support the DPW and removal of the tree to build a sidewalk on the safety issue. They're going to put in 3 more trees there, so I think that'll accommodate a lot of the issues that people are concerned about. I'm very much in favor of supporting this.
And I take Peter at his word that it's gonna be a 2-phase operation, so the sidewalk will get extended down to the boat ramp, so,
It's a funding thing.
yeah,
It's not Peter's word that will make the difference, it's the funding
right.
that will make the difference. That would have to be recommended to town meeting, approved by the select board, go forward to town meeting, and approved. So it's a funding thing, it's not really Mr. McConaty's word. Yes,
Yes, it's true, it's a funding thing, but Public Works gets a funding dollars every year as a blanket to do work within roadways, and this would be included with this. We will include this. It might not be done at the same time, but I'm saying that in my tenure, this will be done.
thank you very much. The meeting has closed, the hearing is closed, yeah.
I'd
Public, it's just board discussion, no more
Yeah.
public
Right.
discussion.
I'd like to make a comment here, too, that it would be wonderful if we could have other red maples there. But if they can't be put far enough back, I'd hate for them to grow like this, then we have to whack them out again because they're
They
disrupting the
already
sidewalk.
do that kind of thing, he
I
spoke
know
to
that
that.
Jeremiah spoke to that, and so he would be looking towards putting them on the property owners, but there's no guarantee that they would allow that to happen.
No, we've already
We're
closed
closed,
the
meeting's
hearing.
closed, we shouldn't have let
Yeah.
Peter
I was
talk.
very relieved to hear about the plan for the new trees. I drive by there a lot. I might go park in that lot in order to walk, like everyone else, to walk on, and I know the tree, so I felt sad about it. But coming here and learning that you have the plan to put in more trees, well,
And I would
solved the
trust
problem
that
for
the
me.
appropriate trees are going to be chosen for whatever contingencies arise.
I'm sure they'll do their best.
If I may,
Mm-hmm.
according to the town code, scenic roads, you are to file your determination with the town clerk within 21 days of the close of the hearing. So that puts you exactly at your next meeting date. However, the town clerk at the time of your meeting would be closed. So if you trust in my ability to write up a positive determination, I will do so on your behalf if you'd like to check it before it goes in. we
Thank
can
you, and I will
certainly
come
do
by and verify, because we usually drop by and see what, yes, thank you.
that. Very good.
Good, so that it's done on a timely basis.
Yep.
So thank you both. And I'm glad you're putting in the new trees, that's good. Okay, next. Thank you both. We're going to hear from House to Home Development LLC, a definitive plan application to create an 11-lot subdivision at 0, 2, and 20 Lewis Street in Old Bayberry Lane. This has been before us for a while. Melinda? Where's the annotated thing he gave us? Pardon? This got handed to us at the last minute. What is it about?
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. Catawba Lane. It's one Catawba Lane, but we have.
Oh, that's fine.
Hello, I'm Paul Seberg from Grady Consulting.
Yeah.
So I believe at the last meeting, we covered all the remaining comments. And I submitted revised final set of plans to Jed covering those comments. So I'd be happy to answer any more questions the board may have, if you have any.
Does the board have more questions?
I don't.
I think it's been thoroughly reviewed.
Yeah, it's been very, very
Yeah.
thoroughly reviewed. Paul,
Sorry.
any questions on this?
No.
Jed?
I agree. I think that the applicant has done a tremendous job of addressing all of the comments. I believe that they're at a point where you can approve the plan as shown on the screen and as presented to you. If you want paper copies, we do have them here. We've drafted a positive motion to that effect this evening, so if you're inclined to, I don't believe, I'm trying to remember if you officially closed the hearing at your last meeting. Yeah, I think you would need to
I don't think so. I think
close
we
the
left it
hearing.
open because there were things that were going to come in
That's right.
that have
That's
come
right, we
in.
did.
Right, so I think our first step would be to close
Close the hearing.
the hearing and then read the motion and see how it goes.
I move to close.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now the hearing is closed, meeting.
One thing that we are just remembering is it's important to take any public comments on the new submitted plans that we received tonight. So you may want to just see if anyone's here to provide any public comment. If there are none, then you're not in a violation of closing that hearing.
Is there anyone here who wants to speak on this particular plan?
Didn't think so.
No, I think they're waiting for their own plans.
Very good. So you're good to go.
Make
Okay,
the same
so-
motion again.
Yeah.
Move to close.
Oh, we already did, though.
Well, he said we had to hold up, I thought.
No,
You've already closed, it's fine.
It's done. So, Bob, do you want to read it?
Okay. Draft, October 21st, 2024. Motion that the planning board votes to approve on the application of House to Home Development LLC applicant under Article 4, definitive plans, Chapter 305 subdivision regulations of the town of Falmouth, a definitive subdivision plan entitled Definitive Subdivision Plan, Sailaway Lane, 0220 Lewis Street, 0 Old Bayberry Lane, Falmouth, Massachusetts, 10 sheets prepared by Grady Consulting LLC, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet, dated May 7th, 2024, with the most recent revision dated October 11th, 2024, along with an erosion and sediment control plan, 0220 Lewis Street, 0 Old Bayberry Lane, Falmouth, Massachusetts, prepared by Grady Consulting LLC, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet, dated August 29th, 2024, with the most recent revision dated September 20th, 2024, along with the traverse table plan, number 0220 Lewis Street, 0 Old Berry Lane, Falmouth, Massachusetts, prepared by Grady Consulting LLC, scale 1 inch equals 60 feet, dated August 29th, 2024, along with an environmental impact statement and a stormwater management report with the following findings, waivers, and conditions. Findings. The applicant filed a definitive subdivision plan application with the planning board for the creation of an 11-lot subdivision off of Lewis Street in East Falmouth. 10 of the lots 1 through 10, will have access through a newly created private cul-de-sac road named Sailaway Lane, while the last lot 11, will have access from Old Bayberry Lane. The total area to be subdivided is 764,000 square feet, approximately 11.3 acres, and the proposed lots range from 40,020 square feet to 42,591 square feet in size. The subject properties are vacant land and are located in the residential CRC zoning district and in the Coastal Pond, Great Pond Overlay District. The new subdivision road, Sailaway Lane, will be a 22-foot wide paved cul-de-sac private roadway that will be accessible from either Lewis Street or Thatcher's Lane. During the public hearing, the board received several comments related to future construction, vehicle traffic for the new development, and related safety concerns. The board chose not to create a single construction vehicle route, as both Lewis Street and Thatcher's Lane do not provide ideal conditions for exclusive construction vehicle access. Rather, the board encouraged the applicant to make every effort to consolidate trips, to be conscious of the safety issues raised, and be respectful of the neighbors during construction. The definitive plan includes the installation of a new 8-inch water main and 2 fire hydrants, underground electrical and gas services, street trees, street lighting, a stormwater collection system, and a shared denitrification septic system. The shared on-site denitrification system will be abandoned when town sewer becomes available in the area. The board found that the environmental impact statements provided by the applicant met the requirements of the subdivision regulations. Additionally, per the planning board's May 6, 2009 final release of bond, Old Bayberry Lane letter, the board found that Old Bayberry Lane provides adequate access for this new lot 11 as proposed. Conditions. 1, prior to endorsement of the definitive plan, a covenant creating a homeowners association along with a separate covenant or bond ensuring completion of the roadway and utility shall be submitted to the planning board for approval. Said covenant shall be recorded with the definitive plan at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds. If within 6 months of this decision the board has not received these 2 items, it may take action to rescind this approval. 2, the proposed water main shall be approved by and installed under the direction of the Falmouth Water Department, and the fire hydrant shall be installed under the direction of the Falmouth Fire and Rescue Department. 3, electrical service to the proposed lot shall be placed underground, and a shared denitrification septic system shall be installed per the approved plans. 4, the applicant shall file a stormwater management permit and fee with the Department of Public Works Engineering Division prior to any land disturbances. 5, the project shall comply with the town's soil erosion and sediment control standard conditions document, which can be found on the Engineering Division's page of the town's website. 6, the applicant shall obtain an approved driveway permit or street opening permit and post any required bond with the Engineering Division prior to the start of any construction within the public right-of-way. 7, no further subdivision shall occur without a modification of this decision by the Falmouth Planning Board. 8, the board's approval of this subdivision plan does not constitute and should not be deemed or construed as an approval of any activity which may interfere or violate rights of other parties. Any appeal from this decision of the planning board can be made only to the court and must be made pursuant to Section 17, Chapter 40A, GL, as amended, and must be filed within 20 days after the date of the filing of this decision with the town clerk.
Second.
Heard the motion, it's been seconded, and is there any discussion from the board? No? Are you ready to vote?
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All set. Thank you. Moving on, Stephen Marsh, this is your project. Definitive plan application to create a 3-lot subdivision at 0 Old Barnstable Road. And you're back. Yep.
Good evening, Steve Marsh, Catawba Lane Extension. I was just handed a few minutes ago some more issues with regard to the engineering on the
Right.
plans. Jed just handed them to me. I didn't get them until just now, so it looks, apparently the engineering department has reviewed a substantial amount of the work, but evidently they did not receive the stormwater management report for some reason. And maybe because it's too big, it's not going through, but I have a copy, so.
If I may. The reason for that is because, as we've discussed before, the stormwater management permit will happen after you approve the definitive plan itself. So, just to save the work for the engineering division at this time, because they're very busy, we decided to just hold off on that. They can review it once the applicant's through this process.
Well, look, because we didn't get it till just before the board, and I didn't even find it among my papers here until minutes ago.
Also
So
related to
we're
how busy
really not quite
they are.
ready to deal with this tonight. Maybe what we're looking at is changing dates?
Wait, excuse me, didn't he just say that it doesn't matter because you're gonna review it afterwards?
Correct,
It will be a condition of the decision,
correct.
the stormwater part. The other parts that he addressed, it's more than just stormwater that are addressed in that.
That appears to be true. So it does look as if we're not going to finish tonight.
No, you would likely not finish tonight, but it would be good for the applicant to go through the changes that were made to the plans, the revised plans that you have before you.
Have you had enough time to see that, to be able to do that?
Sure, yeah, I think so. It's in your report,
Right, we've got it.
so, and everything that's in green is basically approved, so, with regard to engineering. We did change the plans since the last time we were here. We're not doing the circle on the plan, as you can see. Just doing the stub. We put all the language on there with regard to it, all the other lots not being buildable. There was an issue the last time I was here with regard to me not wanting to work with the 300 committee. I'm working with the 300 committee. I've CC'd everybody, including the neighbors. And I think we're in somewhat of a consensus on us being able to use the road, providing I work with the 300 committee, keep everything in the conservation. So I'm
There's
sure
an
we'll speak-
agreement that it will go into conservation?
It'll be, it's not that it's gonna go to conservation, it just will be unbuildable, and the 300 committee will hold the conservation restriction. We'll still own the property, but they'll be basically the custodians of it, with the exception of the one house lot. And I think that was the big bone of contention the last time I was here.
Okay.
So I think you may want to validate that before I go any
They
further.
already did, they're shaking their heads.
Oh, okay.
I'm still gonna wanna talk.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
About the roundabout. Will that be redone?
No, they're just gonna leave it out. So did you want to address the other comments that are still in red? It looks as if all the yellow comments are going to the
Well,
engineer,
the ones that are in
so-
red, I think, are really the ones that are gonna deal with the stormwater management
Mhm.
issues. So, and they are addressed. I mean, I know that they said that everything that's an issue here, that's in the red, is in this report, which we have to go for a stormwater management permit in addition to,
Right,
so, and I think that's what we're saying, we don't wanna put the cart before the, or just, it's
Yeah.
kinda redundant. So they're gonna do it anyway. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I think we've provided everything's provided in the stormwater management report that's in the red. It's pretty, I mean, we can go through it if you'd like.
I think that the planning department is satisfied by it, and the stormwater people, we'll hear from them at a different point. Did you wish to speak?
I'm finished.
He is finished.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hopefully I represent most of the abutters, I'm not sure. But since the last planning board meeting,
We
we
need your
had a...
name.
Sorry?
We need your name.
Oh, Ron Reif, 14 Catawba Lane. So since the last meeting, we had a Zoom meeting with a small group just to try to resolve things. And Jed was in attendance, Steve was in attendance, I think the landowner was in attendance. Kurt Raber, who's a neighbor that I lean on, is architect in the town, my wife, myself, I think that was it. And I sent out a draft agenda for the meeting, and I sent it to the group, just to try to build some consensus, and everybody agreed. And then I distilled that into a message to the abutters, and I sent it to them. And nobody told me to go jump in a lake. So, and I'd just like to read that to you so we could
Sure.
just have this recorded, if I may. So we agree to one house being built on 0 Old Barnstable parcel, provided there is a conservation restriction or equivalent legal instrument for the remaining 8 acres that would satisfy all parties and ensure the remaining undeveloped 8 acres would be preserved, conserved in perpetuity. Any related proposals from the prospective buyer-developer, Steve Marsh, to satisfy this requirement must be reviewed, approved by town attorney, planning board, the planner, myself, and discussed and documented at the next planning board meeting. By the way, I did read, thank you for sharing that, Jed, the engineering division referral. I did actually read through that on my iPhone. I got a bit of a migraine. But the conservation restriction, I believe, would satisfy items 44 and 45, which I believe are still open, but I think that would satisfy the town engineers. Number 2, we need a documented commitment from the prospective builder buyer, Steve Marsh, for repairing or replacing damaged items because of construction activities, for example, trees, pavement, utilities. And then lastly, we need to discuss, document at the next planning board meeting that the prospective buyer, developer, Steve Marsh, will minimize damage to the existing Catawba Lane cul-de-sac, trees, et cetera. Steve agreed to that during the Zoom meeting. I just wanted to just get these comments recorded.
Did you want to leave a copy of the comments with us here?
Sure,
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Well, I'm glad it's been worked out. That took a while, and it sounds like a good resolution. Steve, yeah, you want to conclude?
It is, yeah, it's something we can all live with. So that's it, pretty much.
Okay,
So I'm done, except for the supplying this information to DPW and filing for the stormwater management permit. So,
okay.
and I've agreed to everything that Mr. Rife and the neighborhood has proposed. That is-
So unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to go through the engineering referral as of yet. But our plan, if you would like us to do so, is to start drafting a positive motion for your next meeting,
What's the date of that meeting?
November 12th,
The 12th?
6 days before town meeting.
Okay.
Draft a positive motion, in between time, work out some of these items that the engineering division has flagged for the board's consideration. Have that as a topic of conversation at the meeting of the 12th, so that you can go through these items, we can thoroughly vet them beforehand, and then have a positive motion if you're ready to approve it at that time.
So we should then now close the hearing. So
I
we're
would-
taking care of that.
I would keep the hearing open just in case revised plans need to be submitted, in case we missed anything here, just haven't had an opportunity to go through this yet. So I would recommend keeping the hearing open, and that way we can receive anything new in between time if necessary. Then you close the hearing on the 12th, deliberate, go through it,
Deal with the motion.
deal
Okay,
with the
good.
motion.
I have a question
Pat?
of Jed. Would some of the agreement be memorialized in our decision? That is what I thought.
Yes.
Okay.
As our, just, if I may, a couple of the conditions being, one, that the applicant obtain the stormwater management permit following your approval, that the parcels A and B be restricted through a conservation restriction, et cetera. Those types of elements we still have to draft into a positive motion. Again, I just want to make sure I go through some of the comments that they've got here. And of course, you've got a list of waivers that we need to consider. So again, if I've got the microphone, there's a couple of things that I think that we can address on the list of waivers with the applicant outside of the hearing process. For example, there's two waiver requests, item number 5 and number 6 on your document here, which I believe relate to the stormwater management permit itself. So therefore, they would not be a formal waiver through your process. So it's just cleaning up some things for you at your next meeting,
It's a plan.
if that works for the applicant.
We're good, okay.
So then we have to have a motion to continue it, or do we just continue it?
Motion going to continue, yeah, and then a vote to the 12th.
Okay, so I move that this hearing be continued until
to the 12th.
November 12th.
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're in good order. Now, you're welcome, and thank you. You took a lot of perseverance. Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. You're speaking for Woods Hole? An application to make minor modifications to previously issued special permit, which allowed relief from the required building height, parking requirements, front yard setback, and impervious coverage associated with the complex waterfront access to exploration and research project, which includes the replacement of the existing dock, the construction of a new waterfront building, and other associated site amenities at 86 Water Street. And are we not, at the same time, going to consider an application for minor modifications? I remember going to visit that site. How many of us went? I think
Oh, I did.
most of us went.
Down there.
I visited on my own, I know the site really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Didn't we deal with this like a long time ago?
Oh,
like
yeah.
many
Last
months?
summer.
2 years?
2 years
Wow, it's been
ago
2 years?
tonight.
Yeah.
It was
Jeez.
October 25th.
Yeah, I thought, we've
2022.
talked about this a lot.
Notifications.
Notifications.
Yikes.
Yes, could you please talk about that?
Madam Chair, the application for minor modification to the previously approved special permit was published on October 4th, October 11th, and 13 abutters were notified by regular mail.
And Madam Chair, if I may, just a procedural item. As you may have mentioned in your intro, the folks from Hui are seeking a modification to not only the special permit that was granted, but also your site plan review
Right.
approval. So you have a public hearing process with the special permit, but because they're going to be talking about the same items, I would suggest that you just hear the entirety of their presentation together. And once you're comfortable, just don't forget to close the public hearing and deliberate.
Right,
amongst yourselves.
okay. So we will do that. We'll hear them both together. There's no need separating them. But we'll close the public hearing when we're done, if we are done. Please, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. I'm Rob Munier. I'm the Vice President for Marine Facilities and Operations at Hui. I have my colleagues with me, Mike Barrett as a project manager, Valerie Moore, who's a lawyer, regulatory counsel at Nutter, Jeff Abramson, our architect, and David Jones, our project engineer with WSP. So that's our team that's here. What we hope to do is give you this agenda, starting with a bit of an overview, and that's just to kind of remind everybody what the project is a little bit, just to provide a little bit of context, and also to highlight, what we're asking for here in this request for a modification. Then we're going to give you a little bit of a tour of the previous submission, just for context, so you understand what was approved before. Then we're going to speak to what was approved from a regulatory standpoint, and then we'll speak to what we're proposing. And then, hopefully, at that point, everything will be crystal clear, and we can move on. But so that's what our goal for tonight is. There's quite a bit of information, and really it's to try to paint the picture so that there's, a clear understanding of everything. So a little bit about the project. I just heard, is quite familiar with the site. This is an existing look of it, and we're essentially going to be replacing the dock in a very similar configuration, and then ultimately have a building project associated with it. And so those are some of the names that we'll be referring to, but the ones that are most notable are the Bigelow Building, which is our iconic original building, and then the Smith Building, which is the one next door on Water Street, and then everything seaward of that, which are the buildings and the dock itself. And that's going to be sort of the framework for the discussion tonight. So what's the reason that we're doing this project? Just as a reminder, it's an old facility. It's past its engineering life. It's deteriorating. It costs us a lot of money to maintain it now, and that number is increasing. And we have some operational limitations. There's also, it was built in the late 60s. Its height is inappropriate for the future relative to sea level rise and other climate impacts, so we have that threat existing. It's really suboptimal to the way we operate now, and certainly for what we think of what the future is going to be for oceanography. So there's an opportunity when we redevelop the waterfront to have a future-looking type of a facility. So why are we making this change? The fundamental difference between what we proposed before and what we're proposing now is the order of the project. And originally we were going to do a building first and then build a new dock. By taking down buildings, put in a new building, and then build the dock. And now we're going to do that in reverse. And the reason for doing that is that the urgent requirement is the dock. The dock is, as I mentioned, deteriorating. It's costing us more and more each year to operate, so we have prioritized the dock. And this is a large enough project that we have to consider doing it in phases, fundamentally because of the cost of doing this project. So we see this as being phased, allowing us to find the money to do the project in the right order of the things that are most urgent. It also allows us to do a more holistic approach to this particular site. Previously, we were not even thinking about Smith, and now we are. But this is a longer-term horizon, so we're going to tell you the story of what our plan is that has several years to it. So hence the phasing and the idea that we're telling you what the end game is, but there'll be several steps to get there. By doing this holistic site approach, it allows us to focus more on the resilience question, and the ability to withstand sea level rise, and to consider the entire site in that process. So that's an important outcome. And really, it comes down to the funding realities. Overall, this project's going to be a significant amount of money, so we have to do it in the essential order, and where we think we can get the money for the most essential thing, which is starting with the dock. Oops. Go back one slide here. Any ideas on how to make this thing go backwards?
You can do it now.
There we go. Okay, so fundamentally, though, all the changes that we're proposing are improvements over the previous project. So I think that's the most fundamental thing. For our purposes, it addresses the most fundamental urgent issue first. We actually have improvements in the way the bulkhead is going to be designed that I think are an overall project benefit and a benefit to the site. We actually are going to have, in the end, smaller square footage of building on the waterfront. And one of the things that's sort of emerged through this whole process is that we only are going to have water-dependent activities on the waterfront in these new facilities. So we've had to rethink what the building would do for us, and that's really to make sure that we build a building that doesn't have activities on it that don't need to be there in the first place. So we're taking a very hard look at the water-dependent activities only. We've reduced the building height. Part of the special permit was for the building height slightly over 50 feet. We're going to be under that now. The building footprint is now totally within the VE zone setback, whereas before we had, as part of the special permit, was to get a waiver for that. And then you'll see some images that show our view of how the viewscape will be in the end, which we think is much improved. If you look at our site, you know, we have a very tight corridor here coming in between the community center and Smith, and we have a very tight corridor between Smith and Bigelow. And the one that's by the community center is going to be more opened up than what would have allowed had we not considered Smith as a part of this project. And I mentioned the site resilience being more of a comprehensive approach. And by doing that in this phased approach, by taking the most urgent thing first, it allows us to, you know, incrementally do the fundraising. As a nonprofit, that's the way we do business. So that's sort of the background. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, who's going to take you on a tour of what we had originally planned, so then you'll have the context for the change.
Before you start that, could you say
Sure.
why it did not go forward once it was permitted?
Because we don't have the funds.
Oh.
And by having the additional time and also taking a harder look at the way we're approaching this, we've made some of these key changes to our strategy, which we think allows us to address the most urgent issue first. It's still a big nut in terms of, you know, rebuilding the dock. But now we can rebuild the dock, build a part, you'll see the strategy of how we're going to do this in phases that allows us to do this incrementally. And we have some very serious opportunities for the fundraising for the dock. So in addition to that being the most urgent, it allows us, you know, that's going to be the strategy.
Thank you for the explanation.
I think you'll get the picture when you see this thing sort of spelled out in the phases.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So it was, about two years ago. Oh, sorry. Jeffrey Abramson with Payette Architects from Boston. Thank you. So what I'll show you is a snippet from the presentation that was given here 2 years ago of the project that was approved through this process. A lot of the planning principles of that design are embedded kind of in the new iteration. So this is a lot of what I'm going to speak about is valid with the new approach as it was with the previous one. So this is an existing site plan, Water Streets on the right-hand side and Great Harbor obviously on the left. And what is shown in blue is on this existing condition site plan is the pile-supported dock. And as you can see, the Island building, which was built in the early 70s, is located half on the pile-supported dock and half on land. And maybe many of you saw this when you were out visiting the site. So when you have to replace the dock, unfortunately, no one had the foresight in 1972 to think it wasn't a good idea to put the building half on the dock and half on land. So once you have a dock project, you also have a building project as well to replace that. The site itself has a number of regulatory constraints associated with it. In red is the FEMA VE zone. And as Rob mentioned, the town bylaws have it's the wetland bylaw has a presumptive 25-foot setback to the VE zone. So that's what you see here in orange. And a number of the existing structures out on site exist in that presumptive zone, and some of them actually exist in the VE zone. The center portion of the site is an AE 12 zone, so that means that the base flood elevation is 12. That'll be important momentarily when we talk about the section of the building. In addition to that, along Water Street, there's a 25-foot setback from the property line, which is shown in purple on the right-hand side. So the building that Rob just mentioned, the Smith building, currently exists in that front yard setback. It's existing in violation of that. So initially, when the phasing was the building first, the thought was that there would be a demolition of the Smith connector, which is a low old, it was actually a garage many, many years ago, the low building behind Smith. Demolition of that structure, and that would be the new footprint for the building. And what that would allow you to do is to keep work happening in the Islin building, build your new building, move the folks out of Islin into that new building, demolish that, and then do the dock. Fairly complicated, but yeah, very brief, it was do the building first, do the dock second. So a lot of the planning principles were associated with that phasing approach. Because we're doing the building first, we were really constrained with a footprint that we could work with. We had setbacks off the existing bulkhead. We had setbacks off the existing Islin building, which you see kind of to the left in the blue dash line. And so the footprint of our building was fairly constrained in the previous submission. Because it was constrained, we were forced to go up. The building had 3 floors. In addition to that, the first floor had to be raised above the base flood elevation, and as such, when we were previously here, there was a request to exceed the maximum zoning height in order to get 3 floors in. Without these constraints, you'll see in a minute, we're able to do something that's a little more spread out and achieve the same amount of kind of building program on 2 floors, and no longer have to go for the height variance, permit, special permit. In addition, because of the constrained footprint of the previous design, there was a portion of the building that extended in the presumptive 25-foot setback, which is indicated in the orange hatch. So additionally, this was a bit of something we were forced into because of the constraints of the project. And again, as I'll show you in the proposed plan, because we have more room to maneuver, because Smith is being considered to be demolished as part of the second phase, we no longer need to extend the footprint into that 25-foot presumptive setback. A big part of the story, as Rob mentioned, with the design and planning of the new waterfront building and the dock as well, was looking at resiliency, sea level rise, and sea level rise. So what you're seeing here is a section in the lower right-hand corner. It's hard to see, but there's a red line that's kind of cut through the aerial photograph there. It's a section essentially cut through Water Street with Great Harbor on the left and Eel Pond on the right. And you can see the existing spot elevations. Water Street's at just under elevation 7. The Smith building that exists today, its first floor is at elevation 7, the connector and the high bay building. And the pile supported dock is anywhere between elevation 6.5 and 7. So those are the existing kind of elevations. As you can see, it's the cut kind of looking closer through the site here. The proposal is that the existing dock's at elevation 6.5, and the proposed dock that's going to be constructed is at elevation, will be at elevation 9. So this is a pile-supported dock that will be constructed day 1 at elevation 9, and with the ability that in the future, the dock itself could support being built over to raise it to elevation 10.5 to 11. So in that way, the dock itself can be modified in the future to deal with sea level rise. And there's been a lot of discussion about different ways to do this. And ultimately, the idea is an overbuild, that the dock will be designed structurally to receive another extension on top of it in the future. If that makes sense.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Please interrupt me if you have any questions.
We both had the same kind of question. How do you raise it another 1.5 foot when the necessity happens?
That isn't exactly my question.
Oh, I thought it was,
No,
sorry.
different question.
I'm David Jones. I'm with WSP, the engineers. So along the perimeter, we're going to be putting what's called a utility corridor. We're going to be housing a lot of the water and electrical systems. That's going to be built about 1.5 feet higher than the first deck is going to be. So we're going to have a perimeter around the side that we'll be able to build up against. And then the areas where we don't have that perimeter, we're leaving concrete cap that is that we're going to be able to attach into to build that perimeter. So we'll have kind of a perimeter on the edge, and then we'll build into that.
I'd actually have a different question and then a second one. Is all that expense for 3 feet? I wonder why you're not adding more feet while you're at it.
Yeah, I can answer that. The reason is because 2.5 feet is as far as we think we can go and still have a workable dock for the next 20 to 30 years. In other words, it's inconvenient to go up 4 feet now. It's not, it doesn't support our operations. We think we can do 2.5. And the idea of the additional 1.5 feet is as we experience sea level rise, whether it's 30 years or 60 years from now, we have the option of raising the deck level another 1.5 feet
So it's
as
a
we
rate of change
experience it.
problem.
Pardon me?
It's a rate of change problem.
Yeah, the projections right now are fairly uniformly consistent among the different organizations that make projections for the next 30 or 40 years. After that, they diverge greatly. So we don't know when that's going to occur.
Right.
We're building the new waterfront facility for an 80-year design life, which is 30 years longer than we have for the existing one, and that time went very fast. And we will be able to adapt the height sometime in that 80 years, and either it'll buy us additional time, or the sea level rise will be quicker, and we won't get the full 80 years out of it. But we at least have the option of making a decision sometime during its life to raise the deck level.
Yeah,
But
well, it's a tricky judgment call. My other question is quite different. You said take down the Smith building. That's the building that is the streetscape on Water Street now. So what you're proposing is to completely change the streetscape on Water Street, which is kind of, it's not actually historic, but it's certainly old. It'd be a big change.
What's the right
feel of
term for
downtown.
what's the right term for that?
Woods Hole.
Brutalist architecture. We're not taking down Bigelow. That building
No, I
is
see that, across the street, that's,
not across the street, next door. And we're not taking down Smith until sometime into the future. But by considering Smith now, and you'll see this when Jeff shows you the slides, by considering Smith now as being a part of this project, it unconstrains the new building, and it frees up both the constraint of the VE zone as well as the streetscape, and provides, we think, a much better outcome, because the previous building had to be put behind Smith, and then we push off into the future
I guess
Smith's
I sort of missed the
plan.
elevations on the new streetscape.
Pardon me?
I didn't see the elevations on the new streetscape here. I must have missed them. We'll see them soon.
Yeah, you'll see that. Jeff's going to show those to you.
Jim?
I just, you've used a term that I'm unfamiliar with, and maybe Jed can enlighten me, or you could. You referenced a presumptive 25-foot setback from the VE zone. I haven't heard that before. Has anyone else heard that? Do you know what
No.
that means?
No.
So before we talk about it, maybe somebody should tell us what we're talking about.
Sure, it's a wetland, it's in your wetlands bylaw, and as such, we just previously went back through the Conservation Commission to do order of.
Conditions.
Yeah, to have our order of conditions amended as part of that. So that was a significant issue as part of the Conservation Commission's review of the previous.
So it
project.
applies for all VE zones that, it's not just the V zone itself, there's a 25-foot setback from that VE zone.
That's included in the town of Falmouth local wetlands regulations.
I'm getting educated here, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. This is a section now through the previous proposal. Again, just as a reminder of, again, the compact design was pushing for a third floor. And that third floor, the height as calculated from grade was elevation 56. So it was about 6 feet over the maximum height for this area. And again, that was driven by the constrained footprint. So that's, any other questions on the previous design? Okay, so I'll pass it off to Valerie, who'll just talk about the status of permitting.
I'll just remind the board, Valerie Moore from Nutter, McLennan and Fish, here on behalf of the applicant. So this is a Dover Amendment protected use as an educational institution. When they were before you previously, it was for both limited site plan review that was focused on compliance with the bulk regulations in the zoning bylaw as is allowed by the Dover Amendment. And then a special permit for relief on a couple of criteria, the first being building height, second being on-site parking, third being the existing non-conforming lot coverage. The front yard setback was the fourth one because the electrical transformer that was proposed to be constructed was going to be constructed within that setback, and landscape standards to the extent that they were necessary, as they're not strictly within the realm of the Dover Amendment. So Jeff will go through the changes to the project substantively, but it's probably pretty rare that a project comes in front of you needing less relief, which is pretty exciting here. There's no longer a need for relief from building height because the new building is compliant with the zoning bylaw. The transformer has been removed from the front yard setback and moved elsewhere, so now the project complies with the front yard setback. And as you'll see in the rest of the slides, the existing Smith building's nonconformity as to the front yard setback would also be corrected by the new building. So what we're proposing is compliant with that. Additionally, the project has less building lot coverage and less impervious coverage than what was previously improved. So while the relief is still required for it, it's less relief than what was previously approved by the board. And we are not going to get into parking tonight because we haven't made any changes to what you previously approved. The changes don't alter the number of employees and people using the facility, so we have not made any modifications to the parking. So with that, I will turn it back to Jeff to go through the design changes.
So the way I'll do this is I'll present the full vision of the project first, because that's what the request is today in terms of the necessary approvals. And then I'll talk about the phasing of the project second, so it's clear what the ultimate vision is, and then the implementation of it on a phased approach. So the proposal itself today would be to construct the dock first and then construct the building in 2 phases. And ultimately, the footprint of the phase 1 plus phase 2 would be the yellow outline that you see on the screen here today. And you can see it extending in front of the Smith building. So the Bigelow buildings, the historic Hui building in the background of the image. The Smith building is a military-style building that was done in the 50s. Again, it too, since the previous presentation, a structural analysis was done on the building and found that it too is nearing the end of its service life and has some pretty significant structural deficiencies.
Wow.
Also because its first floor is at elevation 7, it's not protected from sea level rise or storms. Whereas the Bigelow building, interestingly enough, if you go walk down Water Street, it's kind of like a split level ranch. The first floor you go up actually to elevation 15 or go down into kind of a lower level area as well. That building could be more easily adapted for sea level rise because there's some infrastructure that's down on the lower floor that can be brought up to a higher elevation. And you could essentially abandon the lower floor of the building in some future state and still have it work. The Smith building is not as easily modifiable. So it's both the iconic building for Hui and more easily adaptable for future sea level rise. So those are kind of 2 reasons why everyone thought it's a building to invest in for the future. Smith more difficult. So again, I take you back. This is the existing site plan with Water Street on the right. You see Smith and Bigelow. And this is ultimately the full plan build out of the site. And I'll kind of walk through the different aspects of it. So the building footprint itself kind of looks like it's in a staggered approach. And again, that allows us to build kind of the far left rectangle that you see on the screen as a Phase 1 high bay, and then build out the rest of the building kind of in a future phase, and eventually have a presence on Water Street. What you're seeing on Water Street is the building staying back from the 25-foot front yard setback, and then utilizing that space in front of the building for a public outdoor space. And I have some images of this momentarily. But again, it doesn't step forward into the front yard setback. The green space that was behind the community building still exists as well. And I'll show you that in a phased approach. That green space needs to be done as part of the first phase of the project, because Paul's Mall, which is the planted area that exists today, we need to replace that pervious planted area as part of Phase 1, so we're balancing that out as well. The other major thing you'll notice here versus the previous design is that access onto the site today is either between the community firehouse and the Smith building, or between the Smith building and the Bigelow building. They're two very narrow apertures, and you have a lot of vehicular traffic, a lot of trucks coming on and off to the dock that are going through those two narrow apertures. And in the previous project, we did not have the ability to change that because Smith wasn't in play. You still had to deal with those two ways in and off the site. Now the intention of the site planning here is to push the building closer to Bigelow, to open up a primary entrance that meets all the requirements for lanes and everything else between the firehouse and the new building. So that becomes the primary entrance and exit off the site. And it's done in a more open way, so there's more visibility of pedestrians. You're able to see in and out, and it kind of gets, the previous project, it was a bit constrained in which the entry onto the site for people to get to the building and for trucks to get out on the site were occurring through the same location. Now what we're proposing is the primary entrance to the building is closer to Bigelow. The primary entrance onto the dock is on the other side. So we're trying to keep the vehicular circulation and the pedestrian circulation separate from one another. The stepping design of the building footprint you see here too also mimics the location of that presumptive VE zone setback. And by doing this and stepping it back, we not only kind of open up an aperture out to the Great Harbor, but we also stay out of that presumptive VE zone setback. The main entry to the building and its location next to Bigelow serves not only a purpose of separating vehicular traffic and pedestrian entry into the building, but we intend to use that new entrance, and you see where it says terrace there, as a way to provide ADA access into the Bigelow building. Right now, that does not exist easily. So the idea here is that the new building itself will provide an access path up to that second floor of Bigelow at the same level, and provide ultimately a new ADA access into that building as well. So we're using the new building to kind of bolster the infrastructure of the existing one as well.
Where the ADA access is, that bump up heading, sort of north, what is the gray area that appears to be blocking it? The little one?
Where's that?
No, oh, your arrow is to the left of it. Just move it a little bit.
Down.
Okay, there's that sort of pimple on the building.
Oh,
Then there's
here?
the gray one. Yeah.
Those are stairs to get you up to that terrace as well.
Ah.
So it'll become more clear in the sections. The new building ground floor will have to be at elevation 14. That's your base flood elevation of 12. The state building code says you have to be 1 foot above that base flood elevation. And then your local wetlands bylaw says you need to add another anticipated 100 years of sea level rise, which is another foot on top of that. So the ground floor, essentially the first floor of the building, of spaces that aren't functionally dependent, so these aren't the garages for the submarines and AUVs, has to be at elevation 14. Luckily, the upper floor of Bigelow is at elevation 15. So once we set our floor up, we're kind of now at the same level as the primary level as Bigelow. So we can use our building and elevators in our building to get people in and then over to Bigelow. So that's what you're seeing that terrace is. It isn't physically connected to Bigelow, and I should make that clear. It's important that the two buildings are separated from one another, but there is a pathway up into that building.
Charlotte?
Madam Chair?
I'm not seeing the Alvin High Bay. Where is that going to be?
Yes. So the Alvin High Bay will be the first rectangle that you see here built. So there's a little dash line here that says Phase 1 and Phase 2. So essentially, and I'll show this in a minute, the Alvin High Bay in the Phase 1, it's the first thing that gets built. It's the most important thing for the functionality
Right.
of Hui.
That's why I was wondering, I'm not seeing it labeled.
Yes. I have a floor plan in a minute that can show that, but essentially it's the first, that kind of first rectangle.
Madam Chair?
Oh,
I have a question. I was down in today, that's a pretty busy site. I was there previously, but part of that building is still on piles. Is that correct?
No, it's actually, this is,
Isn't that the limit of piles?
the limit of piles is where my cursor is right now. So
What's
essentially.
the other line with the piles?
no, it's backed off the,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, it's this line right here. It's these two dash lines. So essentially, this whole building is shifted back off the pile-supported dock. So we're not running into.
Building
the
will not
same-
be on piles.
No, not at all. It's entirely
Okay.
founded on earth, not to make that same mistake again. And by building less, we're able to kind of pull back away from being on top of the pile-supported dock. It provides more lay-down area onto the dock, because today it's a bit of a safety concern. There's too much happening in too small of an area.
Jim,
You mentioned something about ADA access. Can you show me that path?
Yep. So essentially, folks would come into the main entry of the building, and I can bring up the plans that you all have. There's an elevator in the plan package that you have right about here. You'll come out onto the
So
elevator.
those stairs are stairs up, not stairs down?
They are stairs
Okay,
up.
I got it.
Yeah, stairs
That's
up.
what I
to the
couldn't figure
stairs,
out.
And then across.
All set.
Yep.
Bob, go ahead.
So there is going to be one way in and out of this site?
At the end of the day, one way for vehicular traffic in and out of the site.
Okay, so, what about turnarounds and, you know, you drive in, is there gonna be enough room to turn a large vehicle around and?
Yes, so it's not on this drawing, but a full analysis of doing truck turnarounds with the largest lowboy carriers. They can get onto the site, turn around. In addition to that, the fire department requested that turning study be done with their largest piece of equipment on and off the site.
That's my
So that
next
will be
question.
as
Yeah.
well. Yeah,
Okay.
correct. Again, this image shows a bit more in terms of the regulatory boundaries and how the building footprint sits within that. And here's a section through the new building itself. And what you see in the background, so on the right-hand side is Water Street. Then you see the Bigelow building with its cupola at elevation 79. And the new waterfront building, the lobby will be down at street level with the ability to be modified if ever the kind of Water Street area and roadway gets raised as well in the future. And then a series of mid-bay, and then the question was, where was the high bay? The mid-bay and high bay program face outward to the dock itself. Those program areas, which are determined to be functionally dependent, because it's all the dock program, the submarines, the AUVs that are getting worked on in the shops. They go out to the dock, they come back. Those elements are housed in the high bay, which is at the dock level. And similar to the dock, and this was in the previous design as well, the mid-bay and high bay spaces have the ability to be retrofitted in a renovation in the future up to elevation 10.5 or 11 as well. So similarly, all the infrastructure inside the building will be built in such a way that the interior spaces can be raised up. So all the clearances you see in the high bay for the cranes and everything else needed to be constructed in such a way that they could accommodate that in the future.
So you're really creating a plaza off of Water Street
Yes,
there.
yes, I have some images hopefully
Nice.
that's an exciting thing for the streetscape. So again, the maximum height will be elevation 57. The grade is at 7, so that's your 50 feet. So that's in compliance. And in the red, you can see the previous building. So it's only two floors instead of 3 at this point. In terms of the functionally dependent spaces, what you see on the right is this interesting cut through kind of the ground level of the building. So you can see that there's the entrance to the building's at elevation 7 on Water Street, which is kind of on the upper right-hand side of the diagram. Non-functionally dependent uses such as support offices and spaces will be at elevation 14. And the remainder of the building itself will be at about elevation 9.5 today and surrounded by a waterproof knee wall at the perimeter. And this is a requirement for what's called dry flood proofing for being in the AE zone, and this is a building code requirement and also has to do with FEMA and the flood insurance program. The waterproof knee wall kind of creates a bathtub for the building, and deployable flood barriers, which maybe Leslie Ann's not here, but as part of the Resilient Woods Hole, there's been some demonstration of these flood barriers. Essentially, they get installed in front of doors in order to prevent water from going into the building. So deployable flood barriers would be at all the entrances. All the infrastructure for the building will be elevated up on dunnage or on upper areas, and all the non-water dependent uses will be at elevation 14 to comply with building code and the wetlands bylaw as well. Okay, so getting to probably what you're all most interested in. This is a sketch showing Water Street today. So on the right-hand side, you see the Bigelow building, the corner of it. The entrance in to the dock, kind of between Bigelow and Smith. Smith is in the center of the screen here, and the community building, the old firehouse, is on the left. What is shown graphically is the AE12 flood zone. So this kind of puts a level of realism into the fact that it's halfway up the Smith's first floor. But if you look at the water course of the Bigelow building, and this is kind of the first floor and the lower level, it's a couple feet above that. So that was what I was describing earlier. So what is being proposed is this. So you see on the left-hand side now, the stark difference between the building that's right on Water Street today, violating the front yard setback, with a very kind of limited aperture out towards Great Harbor, and the proposal to open that up as a primary entrance on and off the site, and the new waterfront kind of park along Water Street, because the building is set back now from that. And really the vision here along Water Street is a place to stop, rest, planted trees. It's also a didactic area, essentially Hui can put out interesting information about their mission, different objects and things like that that kind of exist around the village right now to give a starting point. The building itself, the thought is that the base very much mimics the height of Bigelow. So there would be maybe materiality-wise too, a red brick. And then the middle portion of the building, again, the cadence of the windows is very similar to Bigelow as well. And then the idea of the roof plane, which supports the PV array. Since we were last here, the state approved a new energy code in which reliance on renewables as part of projects is part of that significantly. But the idea is that there's a quiet datum at the top of the building, and as you notice, it mirrors the height of the Bigelow cornice line as well. So the intent here is really to try to, in terms of the scale of the building, in terms of the materiality, and in terms of the height, really link itself to the Bigelow building. On the right-hand side, you see that entrance that I was mentioning. So you would enter in there, go up to elevation 14, and then can link back into the Bigelow building.
In the area where the tree leaves are, the middle area, what is that material?
I'll show you in a minute. In the plans that you're seeing there, the idea is that there's a number of kind of, we call them islands or icebergs, various kind of tree planted areas. We had this concept essentially, and I'll show you in the plan, that it was something harkening back to the environmental aspects of who he does. So essentially, there's a mix of crushed stone and seating areas, but with kind of these planted areas that you can sit around that have the trees in them as well. So it's a way to get some more pervious area, do some stormwater retention, capture some of that water that's in the front area and bring it around the building, and then deal with it through stormwater kind of management that's happening in the.
It'd be nice at street level. What about that middle band there, below the glass cap?
Yep.
What is that? It's brick below, and then what's the middle portion?
The middle portion, I'll share this in a minute. The thought is to use a slate rain screen. And we're interested, I'll share that in a minute. The roof of Bigelow is slate, which is a very interesting, durable material. The firehouse and community buildings are cedar shake, like it's ubiquitous down here. Cedar shake is a difficult thing to maintain, obviously, in this climate for a institutional client as well. But it's interesting, the coloration, the spacing of and the size of the slate shingles is a similar scale to the cedar siding. So
I've seen buildings like that in Northern Europe.
yeah, so
Like-
I'll share an image of it so
Yeah.
you can see. But the idea is that central band of the building could be that. This kind of slate rain screen is performative as well. So
This cost a fortune.
it's not a cheap project yet.
So it's slate siding,
Yes, here, I'll.
Just that middle band.
Yep.
Last forever, though.
just like a slate roof, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's done in a different way. When I say rain screen, it means it's kind of individually put up on a facade that's held off the thermal layer of the building.
Yeah.
And by doing so, it's a very kind of durable, long-lasting approach. As Rob mentioned, the intent here is not to have a building that you're investing it needs to be absolutely durable over time. So that's the
Yeah.
intention. And then the top portion of the building would be more glazed. That's where a large portion.
Would
of
never
glass-
really, tall as people are, we would never really see it in that elevation, because we're just not tall enough.
Yeah,
When
you
you
would-
see it drawn that way, it reminds me of Mrs. Jack Gardner's Palace. Is that Renzo Piano's building in
Oh,
Boston? Yeah, the glass box.
very interesting. Yes.
Paul has a question.
Paul,
It's interesting, you just used the term iceberg.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, the Smith Building is named after Iceberg Smith, who did his research up in the Arctic after the
Titanic?
no, what's the name? The Titanic went down. And he was awarded a PhD from Harvard because of his research that changed all of that.
Yeah.
So hopefully keep the name.
Yeah, I did not know that connection. That's great.
I have a question too.
We thought this was, oh, please. go ahead.
I'm questioning the durability of all the glass there, considering that we're having more intense storms.
Yes,
Considering we're overdue for a hurricane up
yeah,
here.
the building code in this area is extremely stringent in the terms of how glass can be used. The glass itself will need to be rated for hurricane resistance and also include an inner layer in it, like you have in your cars or something, so when it breaks, it doesn't just shatter. So they when they test the glass, they'll actually fire projectiles at it in order to be durable. So all the glazing on the project will need to meet that aspect. But again, it's really kind of the third floor of the building in which there's kind of the views out that would have glass. The base of the building, we're thinking is much more solid, it's heavy, it's the thing that kind of harkens back to Bigelow and the NBL building, the Candle House, the use of a material that feels more permanent versus the top of the building itself.
walking down the street, you'll be able to see more of the sides of the building from both ends.
Yes, yeah, so
I wonder
here we
what they
go,
look
I'll
like.
toggle this. So this is how it exists today. The Smith Building is right on Water Street, if you walk down there, and it's not necessarily pleasant, it's because you're on the north-facing side, it's in shadow a lot. But really, this idea of pushing the building back off the street and creating a space, we were enamored with the idea that now Bigelow has a face that's now facing back. Think about all the people that are walking from the You know, the ferry terminal, they're finding their way down here while they're waiting to go out. They now have something that's drawing them to that face, and the structural element at the corner that kind of brings you into the building. And again, you know, just kind of a lively front yard with trees. That lower base, because we're set up 7 feet above the ground, we can't have any windows. It's not a very friendly ground floor level because of the raising off the ground. But as you can see in this artist rendering, the idea is maybe we can put displays and other things that are embedded in that wall. So when people come and they want to learn about Hui, they can kind of walk up and engage the wall to kind of give it some life. So you can see that, you know,
Yep.
along here as well.
Jim?
Question, what's the use on the upper floor?
The upper floors are workshops. So essentially, all those AUVs, things that are bigger than Alvin, will get craned up onto the second floor. And you'll see on your floor plans, essentially it's a bunch of lab workshop space. So it's electronic workshops that are up there.
With all glass walls, and how high are the ceilings?
12 feet. Actually, the glass doesn't go floor to ceiling either. It's a bit of a trick that's happening here. The glass kind of starts at waist level. You probably see that in your section as well. There's a small terrace. The one bar that's facing onto Water Street houses some of the offices and labs. So that's an amenity for the building, and there's some teaching and meeting spaces that potentially could be used with the community as well. So really, we were enamored by this, and we are also interested in the idea that in front of the Candle House and MBL, there's a little pocket park there.
Yeah.
And we're thinking that this is like an opposite, you know, kind of happening
mirror.
across the street,
Yeah.
another episode that you would see as you're walking down the street. There's this, and then there's that space as well. So it was kind of an interesting dialogue between the two as well.
Well, it'll be a big improvement on Water Street when it happens.
When do you go before the Woods Hole Village Association?
But you,
We've presented this basic concept.
Yeah.
We have a community advisory group, which includes representatives of
Yeah.
the Woods Hole Community Association,
Yeah.
Woods Hole Business Association,
Yeah.
our neighbors. And so they've seen versions of this already.
How's the reception been?
They're not here.
Yeah. No,
It's been good.
It
been
looks
good.
nice. I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised, actually.
Mhm.
Because of some of the buildings down there that have been built by the institutes aren't that nice looking, but this is a nice looking building.
all right, so those were the fun images showing kind of the ultimate vision of the project. Just want to talk about how it's seen as being phased. It's important to note, I think in your packages, you'll have two separate packages. One shows the site plan at phase one. One is the ultimate site plan that I presented just now for the ultimate build-out. So this, in terms of phase one, existing conditions, the Islam building, the Alvin High Bay, the flume, and a portion of that Smith connector get demolished. The dock is constructed, and then the building will be constructed. And as you can see, it's just that first rectangle of the high bay. So that first thing that's being built essentially is the high bay. It's the most important thing for Alvin, for the overhauls, everything else. The high bay also has some of the critical dock infrastructure that's supporting it in it as well. Also, as part of phase one, you get the planted area that's behind the community building and the firehouse, and that's to offset the loss of pervious area. So we're always, in every phase, trying to balance out the impervious pervious. We're not ever adding more impervious area than existed. We'll provide all 9 parking spaces, 2 loading areas as well. I think another really important thing, you know, the question was, why not just raise it all at once? We need to get between elevation 6.5 and 9. We need to be able to essentially ramp up between Water Street and the new 9-foot dock. And there's not a lot of area to do that on the site. And we can't have too steep of a ramp, or I don't know if you've seen any of the large semis that go down. They're called low boys because they sit very low to the ground. And if you start heading up, they're going to get stuck. So until some future state in which Water Street 30 years from now or 40 years from now also gets raised up, you can't mitigate 4 feet of elevation change. We can mitigate 3.5, or 2.5, 6.5 to 9 feet, but we cannot mitigate the entirety of it. So that's another important note why it can't all be done at once. So this would be the phase 1 plan. And this is what it would look like in the future. So essentially, that element that's at the end. In phase 2, the Smith connector in the Smith building would be demolished, and the remainder of those elements would be constructed.
I have a timing question for Jed. Permits last 3 years. If you try to permit the whole thing now, depending on funding success, the permits could expire.
I think you
So-
have,
We're going to ask that in your decision, you approve some language that says that the permits are vested at the time that we undertake the dock work. So by implementing that first phase, the permit has vested and it no longer expires. And then it will endure to allow the project to take place as needed.
Can we do that?
yes, you can.
If we want to, okay.
Yep.
Right. And then the final kind of image of the building in the site as well. I'll leave you on something that's very dense and not as nice as the pictures, but essentially, this is a chart indicating all the kind of building block coverage, FAR, et cetera. The existing conditions with portions of the site that are not conforming that exist. The previous approved project, and then the phase 1 and phase 2 which means ultimately completed project. So what's interesting here, as Rob mentioned, that the GFA on the site today is about 180,000 square feet. All said and done, we're at 75,000 square feet GFA at the end of the project. And similarly with building lot coverage area, that goes down as well. So all in all, as Rob mentioned at the beginning, in terms of being very, who he asked us as we were programming the building, looking at what needed to be here, to be very critical that only uses that are dock critical, like day-to-day being down there, needing to use the water, go into this project. And that's a way that fiscally is important too for them, that you're only spending and only building what you absolutely need for the future as well. So, and I think
That
that's-
makes a lot of sense. But I do have another question, because originally you were planning to have, obviously, more personnel there. Where are they going to be moved around to?
So, very straightforward question, very complex answer.
I
and one that
assume so.
One that I'll give you just sort of a general sense of. We're calling that enabling work. What's going to allow us to do this project? And by that, I mean, we have all kinds of activities occurring on the waterfront, many of which have to get moved. And so there's a whole sequence of activities that we're in the process of planning, and some we've already exercised. So for example, one, we had the mooring and rigging shop on the waterfront. That has now been moved to the Quistit campus. We have a machine shop on the waterfront. That is going to get moved to the Quistit campus. So there's activities that have been there, that have occupied, 20,000 square feet, that no longer will be on the waterfront. So even though we're going to have less total square footage, we actually are going to have more square footage to do the water-dependent activities that we need to do. So it's by having moved all these activities off. There's a lot of office space in Smith. Smith is primarily office space and some small electronics labs. So all of that activity is going to take place someplace else. The complexity is there's certain things that have to get moved off the waterfront that are going to come back. There's certain things that are going to get moved off the waterfront that are going to be permanently relocated. So there's this whole business continuity aspect of this process that we are in the process of planning. So I could certainly provide you all of the details of that.
No, I remember
but
when
it's a really complicated spreadsheet.
I remember when we approved the building on the Quistit campus too, that very high ceilings for a lot of that stuff.
Yep.
Well,
You have approximate timeline for phase 1 and phase 2?
So, right now, the Phase 1, if we get the funding that we're hoping we're going to get for the dock, that would allow us to start construction mid-2026. And we actually need between now and then to accomplish two things. One is the enabling work that I just spoke of, and the second is to complete the regulatory process. Our design, thanks to Jeff and David, is done for the dock portion. I will point out that Jeff's architecture work is in the stage of what you saw, so there's still lots of work to be done from a architecture perspective, because that is really coming in, later portion of the phases. So start in 2026, mid-2026, finish in the first quarter of 2029. So that's Phase 1. So it's essentially the building of the dock and ideally the high bay. And then we're calling it our Centennial Vision is the second phase. And we're 100 years old in 2030. So, using that as a broad concept, that's kind of our goal. But sometime after our first century is over, we'd like to get that second phase done.
As a nonprofit looking for funding, you have a contingency planning on Phase 2?
Actually, I think our thinking about Phase 2 is a little bit different than that. The dock is a hard thing to fundraise for. It's a bunch of concrete and steel. The buildings, I think, will be more readily something that a philanthropic approach will be more suitable. But you can't really raise money for the buildings until you have the dock. So that's sort of the sequence we're thinking, that we get the dock funded, and then the building funding will be something that is more readily doable as a nonprofit.
One final comment. I appreciate the effort you made, not only with the graphics, but the explanation has been very, very helpful. I was down there today, and it is kind of confusing, trying to look at the drawings and what's going on down there. But thank you for your presentation.
No, thank you. I appreciate you guys making the site visit. It kind of makes it a little bit more real when you actually see what's going on down there.
Our responsibility as a board is to pay a lot of attention to the technical things, the regulations, are you meeting them, and so forth. But our more interesting responsibility is the character of the town. And it seems to me that this design is really a big improvement for downtown Woods Hole, a big improvement. The 1950s were really not good years for architecture, bad years. So that getting rid of that building is going to be a popular plan. And that is a very, very nice replacement looking on paper. I hope it comes true. Really, you don't usually see a delay working to your advantage, but this one seems to have.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah,
Jim?
I just have a quick comment. I can't sit here and not reference it. 30-plus years ago, I was high-rise office manager dealing with the sprinkler law, changing Massachusetts required us to take occupied buildings, 100% occupied, and sprinkle them. And I got a contract with a company called Wolf Manier, and we did one Beacon Street in 1 year, and they came up a way, keeping the building occupied and dealing with this code, and we developed a plan to sprinkle the whole building while it was occupied, and it was full of lawyers, Palmer Dodge, all kinds of things.
Houghton Mifflin.
Houghton Mifflin, and it's haunting to sit back and listen to the things we did. But I have to mention one thing. During that time, we had a multi-million-dollar contract, and I did attend a World Series game with Rob many, many years ago in 2 different lives. Nothing to connect, but it's just haunting to sit here and think that after 30-plus years, we meet again here in Falmouth. And he's dealing with building codes and changing and adapting buildings to it. So he's done a good job again. I just want to comment on that. I've been listening to him all night, and I had to say something about that.
Well, those were fond memories, I have to say. But thank you.
Okay,
What can we do for you tonight?
should we close this hearing now?
Unless there's any public comment?
Okay, then I move that the hearing for the oceanographic on a special permit be closed.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Done? And I think we have another motion. Is there? Yeah,
Yep, the public meeting.
And we have another one.
there's the second one.
Yeah. The site plan review. We usually don't close those.
Those are just public meetings, right? So
Yeah.
you're just closing the hearing, and if
Yep.
you want us, the staff, to draft a positive motion, we can do so for your next meeting.
I move that we have the staff draft a positive motion for our next meeting.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Positive motion. Excellent. Thank you. Very nice presentation by all. Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we have to be here, so.
Remember Iceberg Smith?
I'm gonna look that up.
Changed Arctic research forever.
That's really gonna make it change on Water Street.
Huge change.
Really
by-
a change.
By 2030.
Oh, my gosh.
Someday Water Street will really be Water Street.
Yeah.
We gotta take notes.
Now they have to fix the garage doors on the community building.
They gotta start making plans for raising the Captain Kidd.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a 40B proposal to look at here.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like we're getting, one of these a week,
Yeah.
or one a month.
People must see the lid coming down on that box.
The good news is that, the market has responded to the housing crisis that we're currently in. And so there are developers out there who are looking to build affordable housing in town. So we'll start there. That's the good news.
That's good.
So before you tonight is a referral from the ZBA for 0 Broken Bow Lane. It includes 16 units. If you're not familiar, this location is right at the beginning of Broken Bow Lane, which is just east of Homestead Lane.
Right across from the mirror and glass place.
Correct,
Yeah.
right. So it's just past Homestead on the left-hand side. So Belinda's calling it up on the GIS. So it's the parcel of land that's located just before the subdivision, but not directly on Route 28. So there's actually a piece of land between T-Ticket Highway and this parcel of land that is owned, I believe, by the state. So it doesn't abut Route 28
Will
directly.
there be a green buffer?
It's vegetated currently, so the whole area is completely vegetated, so it will remain as such. So
Madam
there's
Chair,
a street.
before I have to just announce that the owner of this property is a previous neighbor of mine. I've done business with him. I've done business with his family. Have no financial relationship going on. I feel comfortable that I can act independently on this, but I just wanted to say that. I have been pointed out that I hadn't said that at previous times when people objected to it, but as long as I say it, I'm covering myself, so I just need to point, no financial relationship whatsoever, and no current contract. But in my business, I can have a contract with anybody at any time if they want to sell their house. That's what I do.
Right.
So I'm just letting you know, I have multiple, both friendship and neighborhood and business relationships in the past
With the owner of the property.
with, I believe it's William Curley.
It is. The current owner of the property, yes.
A question, Jed. These elevations look remarkably familiar. Have we seen this before?
Yeah, I
or are they-
So
are they
these-
just getting these out of a catalog?
These are very similar to the elevations you saw for the 85 Brick Hill Road proposal.
Yeah.
So it's very similar. It's the same duplex style structure. The studio apartment, which if Melinda can just scroll down, the studio apartment building is slightly different. There's some modifications made to that. I think it can keep going.
16
The
units, you
two-story
said?
one.
16 total.
That
yeah.
one.
Yeah. So before you,
Before.
you have, right. So they're using essentially the same architecture,
Consultant?
the very same
Is that
architecture.
4 units?
That,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Or
7, 8.
that is 8 units.
8 units.
Yes.
Count
So
the
there's
doors.
2 of those.
There's just one studio built, so these are all studio apartments, 8 units within that building. There is one building on the site, and then the remainder of the buildings are proposed to be duplexes. So you'll have 8 studio apartments and 8 two-bedroom apartments, all rental within this development.
Are there 2 buildings like that?
Only one,
Only one.
only one.
You said 8 two-bedroom, but there's a question there because they're showing 3-bedroom also.
I noticed that in the elevations, so
But we're not told what any of them
That's what
are.
they look like.
So on the site plan itself, there are, you can see it on sheet 3 of 11, they show the proposed duplex as a 2-bedroom units. But we will certainly add that into the referral, that there seems to be confusion on the type of unit, because they do show a 3-bedroom elevation in the
I
packet.
don't know if this is an appropriate question. I'm wondering if the trade-off on low-grade aesthetics turns out in low prices for the houses, so they might actually approach being affordable.
Well, I mean, in full disclosure, I mean, it is the approach of the applicant, is to try and keep the costs down of the construction
So what's
costs.
their intent on charging for these?
I'm not sure that they provided that in the referral.
But wouldn't that be important information?
Well, don't they have to have 25% automatically affordable?
They do, 25%. So there's 4 units that will be affordable to households earning no more than 80% of the AMI. So there's only 4 affordable units. The remainder of them are market rate.
But they all look like cheap housing, so I'm wondering what they're planning to charge for them.
I just don't have that information at my fingertips. And it wasn't included in the referral. I mean, the referral is really about the site plan itself and, you know, the layout, the elevations, et cetera. We can certainly add it to a
You would
comment
think,
that you.
considering the goal is affordable housing, that somewhere in the application process, there would be information about the ultimate price to a consumer. If that's the end goal, what does it look like? What is being proposed? It seems an important part of a proposal.
Certainly. Oh, we can check the webpage, the Zoning Board of Appeals webpage, because they do include all of the application materials, so we can try to do that very quickly.
Is this something that when the ultimate decider at the state level looks at it, they take into consideration the ultimate cost to the consumer?
Well, I know that the affordable units are capped at the allowable rents, right? So that the developer can't, or
Right, and we all know the reality involved in those prices, not
the
so
market,
great.
the market is not capped. That's, to my knowledge, the market rate units are not capped.
It isn't whether or not they're capped, it's whether or not it's a factor in deciding to approve and fund. Because if they're not meeting the state's goals, one questions the advisability of allowing them to be built.
Yeah, I don't think it's a factor. The factor would be the affordable units themselves, because 25% of them are required, but I hear what you're saying. I just couldn't tell you.
Well, not that anything to do with this project, but previous projects I have done, I think the state has a requirement about the overall profitability of it. There's a limited
There is.
profit, and I think it's 20-something, they have to submit at the end of the day to the state, showing how much they bid and how much they make, so there is, but that's at the state level. We had to do it at Kendall Lane, that's only where I'm talking about, so there is.
Right, and it's a factor in Kimco's planning, that they're
Right.
going to, if they avoid 40B, they don't get stuck with
Right,
that limit.
that's why they try to
Right,
avoid 40B.
that's why they're trying to avoid it.
Yeah.
So it must be somewhat restrictive,
It is.
but I wonder, yeah. Okay, I'll
I'm
drop it.
showing here the breakdown of the
There we go.
cost.
So this was part of the application that they
Right.
submitted to the ZBA.
So the affordable studios, there's 2 of them, and they're gonna be $1287 plus utilities. There's one affordable 2-bedroom, it's $1776 plus utilities, and one affordable 3-bedroom, which is $2168 plus utilities.
And these are the affordable prices?
Those are the affordables. So the studio market rate is $1,700. 2 bedrooms, $2,600, and 3-bedroom, $2,900 for the regular rates.
You know, a starting teacher salary in Falmouth is $48,000 to $50,000, and your take-home is $3,200 a month.
It goes on our.
Can't afford
It's not affordable.
No, they're not.
I know when I came out of college, not only was I paying rent, but I was making a car payment, $300 a month, college loan.
So the amount is based on the average income
I know,
of Falmouth,
I know.
so.
No,
It's
no, I know
Barnstable
that
County,
the town
right?
doesn't set
It
the
is
rate. This
Barnstable.
isn't
No.
something
Yeah.
you have a hand in. I just think it's something that's part of the process, but something in the process ought to generate attention on the failure to meet the overall goal.
It's a farce.
Yeah, it is. And we're participants.
Oh, it looks good, we'll give a blessing to it, but it's a farce.
Yeah. So anyway, what do we want to do with this? We get to comment on it. So does anyone wish to comment on it?
Well, first of all, there is no landscaping plan in here.
Good
And
comment?
that's one of our things that we are looking at on site plan review that
Mhm.
is our responsibility. Oh, there are nice pictures, but there's no
There's
landscaping
no
plan.
plan.
There's one garage shown that is for storage, but you have the, and this is not in our purview, you have the efficiency apartments. Where are they gonna store anything?
That's why I think they get these from a catalog, because we had the same comments from the one that looked like this.
Is that a landscaping plan we're looking at?
This is a conceptual site design.
Okay, so it's,
Oh, I didn't see it in what we have.
They didn't give it to us. This is on the ZBA's website.
Oh, okay.
And again, it's just conceptual.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
yeah,
our
that was all.
comment should say that the buildings look very stripped down. It makes it look, I don't know, I think we should be careful in the wording, and you're good at that, Jed, to make it not pejorative, but find a way to say, really ugly.
I will find a way.
Thank you.
I mean, for us to really look at a landscaping plan, we usually have detail there.
Yeah.
What's gonna be put where instead of, oh, it's just kind of an idea.
Any other comments?
And who's gonna be the agent to, is it the builder that's gonna monitor the rentals, or?
Oh, no, I think they have to use the town, Kim Fish, I would suppose, is going to.
So there'll be a local monitoring agent for the affordable units.
Yeah.
Which will have to go through a lottery, that whole
Right.
process,
Yeah.
yep. But
usually
just,
it's Housing Assistance Corporation runs.
Can be.
In my experience, it's been Hack
yep.
Yeah.
that does it. They run the lotteries and they qualify and they monitor. I know nothing about this project, but I'm
I
talking
think they
with
do
Kendall Lane.
all of them, yeah,
I'm talking experience on Kendall
yeah.
Lane.
Yeah.
Which is all sold, right?
Oh, yeah. And I can tell you, I encourage you, all of it, to look at it, because I flew my drone out today, and you wouldn't believe how beautiful the lawns are
Really?
in, the landscaping's there. I really think you should all, and you can drive through the street now, because it's connected on Alma Lane. You really gotta judge it and look
Oh,
at.
I gotta go down
We
and take a
took a
look.
lot of heat, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. It's
Okay.
amazing. And the market rate units weren't affordable. They were a lot of money. Up to $1.35 million.
Do we need more, Jed?
If you've got more,
I don't.
okay.
Okay, we've come to,
Well, no, wait a minute. So we're talking about the quality of the buildings?
yeah,
I mean, if people are gonna be paying market rate, the quality of the building materials and what's in them should reflect that. And especially the affordable units, if you put in cheap stuff, it's not gonna last that long.
Right.
So I think there should be a quality issue there. You know, as
So
far as-
indicating that better quality material should be
Better
used.
quality materials, lower maintenance materials, so for the outside, it looks like it's clapboard, and it could be the hardy board, which is fine, that's a long-lasting material. The trim could be AZAC, things that are not gonna rot, don't need a lot of maintenance, so.
Are these rental units?
All rental.
So I think it would behoove the developer that he uses,
Yeah. you
because
would-
he's the one that's gonna be replacing them.
You would think, but.
Because these are being rented, not bought.
Right, but you would think, because, it's not uncommon for a developer to build something and then let it go, start looking seedy after a while, so, just.
okay, I think we've dealt with the ZBA referral. Is there a planning department report?
There is. We've been working tirelessly, as you know, on these zoning amendments. We are preparing for town meeting, so that means we're getting all of the the required documentation ready. So we've been working on a presentation for town meeting members. There is And I won't jump to it now, but I want to mention it so that we don't forget. There's a precinct meeting schedule in your booklet that we would love to have the board discuss in a little bit. We are actually tomorrow, fingers crossed, finalizing our submittal to the state for our open space and recreation plan. So part of a preliminary submittal for recommendation or approval. So we're very excited for that. Michaela's been working very hard on that, and so we're hopeful that we'll be able to do that by the end of the week. We did receive our draft parking management plan, which I'm hoping to share with you folks at the next meeting. So the consultants have provided that to us. We're just giving back some comments currently. So things are busy. And of course, we're always reminded that Shivrix Pond is going to be built before Paul decides to wring my neck. No. No, that's not the word I was going to use.
That was extreme.
So things are busy, but we're really focused on town meeting, because obviously that's coming up very quickly.
Oh, and on town meeting, I would like to say I intend, this board initiated the hearings on short-term rental, and the select board decided on indefinite postponement for this year with the thought, or at least at the enterprise, thinking that it will come back for the April town meeting. I am very disappointed that that's what happened, and intend to ask for a hold on it in the town meeting, because I'm a member there, and put in a positive motion to change that recommendation and see what can be done. I'm not really expecting to be successful in it, but I would like to kind of use that as a teachable moment for talking about how the town needs that, and what it will do for us, and what our reasoning was in holding the hearing, and what our hopes are for that regulation, which we won't be the administrators. The health commissioner will, because that's a sensible place to have it. But I'm sorry that it's not coming up now.
It will
We
give
don't
you
have it.
the ability to get the temperature of the room from town meeting
Yeah, I
on
think
that.
so.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a good plan to do
Okay,
that.
well, and Jim has some information on this too. I don't know whether you want to share that or not.
No, as you know, I didn't want to sit on this board because I'm a Realtor, and this is my trade and business. And I meet every Wednesday with all the Realtors in my art gallery about all the things going on, the new listings coming on. And this has been a topic of discussion every week since you've been having the hearing. And there, a lot of the Realtors are expressing interest is going too fast, and they're expressing the homeowners that this needs more time, and that's because that's their job.
Right.
And you need to understand that. And we'll probably be discussing it tomorrow morning at 8:30.
Well, and we had two Realtors on our
Oh,
board.
yes, I'm very
Yeah.
familiar.
So
with them.
you asked for them?
They came, but the feedback from, there are only two people. The feedback from all the other Realtors is to push back, that they want to slow it down, and they don't think,
Well, and they're entitled
they're
to.
the right to have that
Sure,
opinion.
of course they do.
Maybe if we go at next time, maybe you want to come to one of my meetings and address them directly and tell them why you think differently, because it's open. I'm not
Right.
stepping up one way or the other. That's why I didn't participate in your board,
Do you
because
think I would change any minds?
they may change yours.
Oh, no. Maybe. I don't want to close that completely. Shall we take a look at the precinct meeting schedule and see?
Can I quote you on that?
No. And see who is available to go to these precinct meetings. You've got the chart. These are precinct 1 and 2. The downtown one, Pat, you've done that in the past. Jim? November 7th, Thursday.
That's
Town
November,
Hall?
what date?
It's November 7th.
7th.
Thursday?
Yeah, you got the chart in your book. You might want to pull it
Who's
out
the precinct
and take it
captain for
home.
1 and 2?
1 and 2, I think, is still Doug Jones.
I'm not going.
I think he's still the
Doug
captain.
Jones?
Yeah.
For 1 and 2? He lives in North Falmouth.
1 and 2 at the Civil Defense Firm has always been Doug, and I want to say, gosh, who else was
Yeah,
there?
somebody from Woods Hole. Anyway.
I go to that one because I'm
Yeah,
in
you do.
You're going to
town
that one?
meeting member.
Yep. Okay, Precinct 3 at the Gus Canty Center, November 12th.
That's an issue. So that's the night of your planning board meeting.
Right, so we'll be here.
Right. So I think that perhaps one of the staff members here will attend. I mean, I'm planning to attend all of them. as-
Staff, who might that be?
Well, how can you attend it if we're here?
I would have to.
Yeah, yeah.
Either that or she,
Pretty obvious.
Linda
One of
takes
the
the
staff.
board meeting and I do the precinct meeting. But one of us will not be here,
Does she have a name?
Usually.
typically, yes.
Okay, 4 and 7 on the 13th, the Wednesday, at East Falmouth Elementary School. Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday. As far as I know, I can't go to 2 on one night, but I can go to one or the other on Wednesday and certainly the next one on Thursday. Yeah, West Falmouth Library is my own precinct.
So Charlotte, you'll do that one?
Yeah. And 8 and 9,
That's the 6th.
Bob, that's you, isn't it?
I can go, but as long as somebody else is going to be there.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we all set?
Yeah, I don't think we got anybody for,
I didn't see that
East
in the
Falmouth.
book.
For downtown?
no, East Falmouth.
East
Oh,
Falmouth.
East Falmouth.
When-
John
when's
has
East
usually
Falmouth?
got, yeah, it was in the
John,
book.
yeah.
I didn't see it.
Let's see if we can get
Yeah,
John.
where is John?
He's at his son's wedding.
Oh,
Out of town.
oh, that's a good
What?
excuse. Okay, all
He's out of town.
Son's wedding.
It's the 13th.
here it is.
Oh,
right, I'm definitely taking.
I couldn't make it the 13th. Out of town.
Okay, we have one announcement, and it deals with Eversource. Who wants us to pay attention to a presentation that they're doing, Electric Sector Modernization Plan, what it means for Falmouth and Cape Cod, Monday, October 28th, at noon, odd timing in the Herman Room Library.
So they don't get too many people showing up.
Exactly, so. that
Be
one
there or
goes
be
down.
square.
And I don't think we had any other correspondence, Paul?
We did not.
Future agenda items.
Yes, future agenda items.
I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
I've done some research, and it's kind of interesting. The warrant for the 1925 town meeting set up the planning board was appointed as a committee for a specific purpose. It was the first of 4 planning boards in the entire state. And the next year, January 21st, 26, they mentioned the work of the board in the past year, quote, has been confined exclusively to the preparation of a zoning bylaw. Surprise. And then the next year, in 27, it said they considered all questions within its field, including, relating to roads, buildings, public lands, et cetera, and has been represented at all state and county conferences. So, since we're facing the 100th anniversary of the planning board, I think we should probably do something
I was waiting for that.
About
to
that?
celebrate the 100th anniversary.
So
Are there
are you
costumes
asking us
involved?
to throw you
I
a
think we
party?
should do something to
Well,
I'll throw a
celebrate.
party in my art gallery, no problem.
Well, I'll come.
Yeah, if you want
Were
to.
you on the board then?
Yes.
Jim and Pat, they were here.
I think we should do something.
I think her
should,
name's
I agree
Pam.
with you.
Is her name
Oh, yeah,
Pam?
my name is Pam.
Oh, damn.
I'll be here all
Doing
night.
so well
Hey,
up to
I should
then.
give it to you.
was.
Love it.
Okay, I think we're gonna entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.